So, revolutionary greetings, comrades. Once again, feel most welcome. This is myself, Comrade PG Medumaini, and welcome to our philosophy class, which is the Consciousness Philosophical and Ideological Study Group. Of course, we are a group of committed Pan-Africans who meet, progressive Pan-Africans who meet every Thursday to read, study, and analyze the writing by Kwame Nkrumah in this Pan-African philosophy that he gave to us as a philosophy and ideology for decolonizing Africa. And a decolonized Africa is a totally liberated Africa, because people might say, why decolonized? Yet we have come from colonialism. A decolonized Africa is an Africa that is totally liberated, totally unified, and totally developed. As we look at this big consciousnm, we'll get to realize that Nkrumah actually tackled each plan for each of the three. Nkrumah lays the basis of how or who is a liberated person or a liberated territory, which even refers to be more in the context of a country. What is a feature of a liberated country? And how can a country be liberated? Then he goes to prescribe a united territory or the unification of the continent. And based on his analysis, liberation is fundamental to the unification. Then the unification, then it talks of us developed Africa. And a developed Africa, he brings the aspect of a socially or socialist developed Africa, an Africa that's developed on a socialist framework, not an Africa developed on a capitalist framework. Now, for the first pages on the first paragraph to this paragraph, first chapter to this chapter, we've been calling the aspect of liberation. And liberation meaning the liberation of mind. That's why we've been looking at various philosophy and to honor to understand how the universe is made up of, get ourselves liberated out of idealism, an idealism philosophy that tie us and make us not to reason to the extent that's needed. And that's why we turn to materialism and philosophical materialism. So we've been looking at the society, we've been looking at the philosophy in retrogress, trying to understand how is the universe, what's the universe made of? Because until you understand how the universe is made of, or what is the forces driving the universe, then you can be able to liberate yourself from the so idealist forces that tells you that the universe is God, spirits, and everything else. But you must be able to understand that our universe is a natural universe. A natural universe. It's basically being matter. And in fact, some contexts still say, in my mother tongue, we say, as it happens on earth, should be the same as it happens on heaven. But in one way, people think that then the earth and heaven are different. We've been tackling both theism and pantheism. Well, in that, in our country, that's saying now in my community, so as it happened on earth, it would happen on the heaven or something like that. I don't know how the person analyze it. Says the unity of earth and heaven. Because the actions that happen on earth should be the same action happen in heaven. And that has been the wish of so many people. That tells you in reality that there is no heaven outside earth. And that there's oneness, the universe is one. But this is something that we'll have to analyze and understand deeper. We'll go now to look at the philosophy and the society. What type of a society do you envision? We've been exposed to various categories of society. We've been looking at a capitalist society. And in previous classes, we analyzed the differences between what we call democratic society and a socialist society. And in some of the writings, as we try to analyze various philosophers, one of the philosophers says, socialism is an egalitarian, is a compatible egalitarianism where one in all matters. That's what the people say, that there's the person is people. So when there's a context that everybody matters. No democracy says the majority have their way. But that is mere talk. In socialism, everybody is actually considered. You see? And that's what we talk egalitarian society, an equal society. So we've been still looking at the society and how do we view the society? And we are still in that part. So we have been looking at the philosophies of various people, where, of course, Socrates was advancing egalitarianism, Plato comes with a different philosophy that people cannot be equal in the society. There are people who are learned, and education then segregates people. As those will be workers, those will be either bosses, and those will be whatever. That's what the analogy of Plato is coming in. While Socrates was trying to bring the slave boy in the conversation to show that we are not different in terms of the work we do. We are all human beings with ability and capability to contribute equally to the society, irrespective or despite of now these classes that are being put on us, where now the pastors are the divine being. Before you read to God, the pastors were above us and the preachers and the bishops. So we are just only servants. But that's not the reality. In an egalitarian society, we are all equal. And the equality of us is measured with our potential and capability, not what we end up doing or what the society confines us to do. That's where we have been looking at this and we've been analyzing the philosophy. So we are continuing our study and our reading on the Plato's approach. That's why I'm telling you, Plato's philosophy was trying not to bring this aspect of class structures or people getting to lawyers or whatever. But even in a society, as much as one person is a farmer and another person is a doctor, that does not merely mean that they are not equal. They are all human beings with equal potential, just as they do different works in a society. But Plato then feel that they are not equal. A doctor is much equal or more equal than a farmer or somebody else. But that's the analysis. So let's continue reading Plato's text and his thinking. And this is the reading for today is what I've highlighted here. So please, let's continue. If welcome Sister Abigail and General Minaki and Sister Tapoa and Sister Mia. As usual, Sister Abigail, are you in a position to read for us the highlighted text? If you ask somebody to read the highlighted text, if you can see the text I'm sharing, to read it for us slowly, all the paragraphs, first paragraph, second paragraph, and you start sharing our thinking. That's always what you do. Yes, Sister Abigail.
Okay, thank you. So I'll start reading.
Yes.
Plato's reaction.
Go slowly. Go slowly. Plato's reactionary philosophy. Slowly, so that everybody digests. Because you see, we are needing for people to start sharing their things. So even as you read slowly, even you will be able to digest the words. Because once you finish, I'll ask you, what do you think in that text? So also read as if you are reading it at your own pace, so that you can be able also to understand the text. Please proceed. Thank you.
Plato's reactionary philosophy received development at the hands of the Christian intellectuals. For when they needed a philosophy to buttress their division between a heavenly order and an earthly order, it was to Plato and to a lesser extent Plotinus that they turned. It is important to see clearly the nature of the swing that had thus taken place. I started this sketch of Western philosophical thought from a time in the history of its Greek founders, when an aristocratic class, assisted by a priestly oligarchy, held the sum total of social political power. Should I continue or should I continue?
Please continue until the end of the related paragraph.
Okay. The earliest philosophers rebelling against the social order which a theological explanation of natural phenomena encouraged, went to the root of the matter by introducing a different kind of explanation for social and natural phenomena. The social implication of their metaphysics was a certain egalitarianism which theoretically implied democracy and socialism.
Thank you for the reading. Thank you very much. Let's go to Sister Tapua. Sister Tapua. Sister Tapua, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Please start us by your thoughts, by sharing with us your thinking as analysis. I think I touched on what Plato was bringing sometimes back in my explanation, but try to share with us more of your thinking here. I think just an explanation.
Yeah. For me, what stands out in the first paragraph is the fact that Nkrumah is saying Christian intellectuals had some other intention, that they had to look for philosophical support. So their position is not philosophically driven, but it's to support an intention that they have, an intention to divide and rule, an intention to focus people on the heavenly order and saying the earthly order is something that you shouldn't worry about. And for me, particularly in my country, Zimbabwe, where people are really desperate, they're so focused on heaven and the heavenly order because they seem not to understand, or they're reluctant to confront the earthly order. And our politicians have now resorted to going to these white garment churches, especially during elections, to campaign. They're also in those white garments. They're trying to use the church to buttress their own position. So here we are being told that in Christianity, we don't have egalitarianism. We actually have some kind of order that is focusing people on other matters, detracting them from the current and what's happening here, and saying there's got to be a heavenly order. This is why we must pray for our leaders, because leaders are ordained by God, and a community is given its leaders because God thinks those are the people they deserve. It's a tall order. Christianity is the opium of the people. Yes.
Just to still touch on your thoughts, the flow of your thoughts, you had said that they turn on this philosophy. Do you think, why were they turning on this philosophy, the class, the religious or the Christian intellectual? Why were they turning to this philosophy?
Because of the way Plato went against his teacher. He'd started supporting Socrates, and Socrates was saying the slave boy is equal to the master. And the Christians definitely did not like it. So when Plato went against the teaching of his teacher, they then found an ally in him, because then they used the change in position that Plato had to the reactionary philosophy that he came up with to support their own, because then they would be beyond questioning, which is why, for example, they justify the fact that they think Africans are not human enough. And that's why the church, particularly the Roman Catholic Church, then found it justifiable to do to justify the treatment that the church would give to people on the continent.
Thank you, Sister Papa. Just touching on the same. That paragraph says that when they needed a philosophy to buttress their division, which means Plato brought an aspect here that everybody is not equal in a community. Different to what Socrates was trying to advocate for, and even Anaximander was advocating for. Now, you remember when we were looking at the idealism sometimes back, when we were talking about this class of the theologians and the aristocratic classes of the preachers, where they appeal to the divine power. So sometimes they tap on that inequality that Plato is trying to propose, that the society is not of equals. So when they tap to this inequality and this philosophy of Plato, then this philosophy makes them above other people, like in the society. The preachers then assume a power beyond or above the people. They be like the earthly gods. In that position, when then able to say either prophecies or do direction on the people, then the people appears like the followers. So this is what is being said here. They were now trying to embrace this Plato's reactionary philosophy. But your aspect today, why do you think pastors want or the preachers want to assume that position, even in the African context today? Why do they want to bring that vision that they are either the men of God or the called or the saints, so that they have to preach over to the other congregants? Why do you think they do this?
I think it's all to do with power, because what we see here is the alliance between the religious people and the politicians, where there's always this struggle between them of who's more powerful. But with religion, you can't challenge God and God's decision. So that places the men of God on a pedestal, and that makes them unchallengeable, because what they're saying is what God is saying, basically. And if they're saying God wants you to do this or to give me this or whatever, they at their whim, the congregation becomes party in their hands to be molded in the way they want it to be molded. So religion is one of the ways that they ensure power is in their hands and is not questionable.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any comments in the second paragraph, or we'll go second on the second paragraph? So let's stick to the first paragraph. Because let me get the comment from members or the thinking of members in the first paragraph, then I'll go the second round as we digest the second paragraph. Okay. And try to work out. So let's get to General, you are here and then you left. Are you able to comment on this first paragraph where Plato is trying to attack, or actually where Mkunu is trying to bring the church and the Christians, intellectuals, and they are like for Plato's reactionary philosophy? General Spala, are you able to share your thinking in regards to that first paragraph?
Give thanks, Son of the Lake. Give thanks, family, the Queens of Africa. Yes, sir. Okay. No, my brother, again, it comes to that explanation. I tried to explain weeks ago that it's true, first of all, what you are saying, that they know that how the mind of the Christian works. And I also want to remind that Christianity was created by a black man, you see. So, and when it was created with a lot of other religions. So religion, when it was created originally, was good for the people. Then what they did during the rise of the Roman Empire, they took what is good and they transform it for their own uses, as we are seeing here. It is saying, I quote, it is important to see clearly that the nature of the swing that has thus taken place. So the white people, so-called white geniuses, know exactly the history of the black people, no doubt. So in so knowing that, they use the same divine order of our African culture against us. And that's how it continues to work against us, because it's something that is embedded in our DNA. And therefore, like the sister said, when you say God said, then the black people will obey because of that DNA that is embedded in us of the African tradition. So, okay, when I close, okay, on this point, I will say that the Roman Empire, knowing the truth, they started in that great schism I told you about, when the Byzantine Empire and the main Roman state started to split the original African-based Christianity and formed their own Roman Catholic Christianity. So during that time, I believe these events that our father Nkrumah is talking about are the events that were happening during this time of the Great Schism. Thank you.
Thank you, General. But if I may ask a question, are you able to answer this? Now, my question would be, Brother Ras, we have come across these various philosophers. You remember when we started with Berkeley, Thales, Anaximander, and all those other philosophers we come across. We've been seeing the old philosophers trying to handle these key issues of either the idealism and materialism. In our own view, up to where we are, how do you think that the early philosophers challenged the theological explanation of natural universe? Because you see, this aspect of theological explanation of natural universe is basically what then led to the church people, the so-called the divine people, to assume that theological thinking that the universe is made up of ideas and spirits. And in the spirits, when now you bring the hierarchy of being, that there's God, spirits, then there are either the bishops and the preachers and the people. How do you see this being challenged by Socrates? You remember you came across Socrates and back. How do you then put the position of Socrates in respect to this position of Plato as how the Christians were also taking advantage of it?
Thank you, my brother, for that question. Okay, first of all, I agree with Socrates on his side of egalitarianism. You see, the reason I'm agreeing with Plato is only on that aspect of having heavenly order and earthly order. That aspect is true, We are not equal as people on the world. That point is true. That's the only point I agree with Plato with. Otherwise, the other things of Plato is not true. For instance, what you are saying, this thing of spirituality, idealism precedes materialism, which is not true.
Oh, so, okay. Raspala, when you say we are not equal as a truth, how are we not equal? Are we not equal in terms of biological setup, or where is the inequality coming in?
Yeah, biological setup, my brother. Biological setup mostly, yes.
So does it mean that there are some beings who are less human beings in terms of their biological structures, or all beings in this universe meet the standard of being a being, for example, being a human being, or the people are less human beings?
No, my brother. Actually, what's happening is that the human beings are the Asians and the white people, the Caucasians, they are the human beings. And we Africans are not human beings. We are more than men. We are extraterrestrials, my brother. So there's no one who is less of a human than another. That's why I'm saying it's just the biological setup that separates us black people from the rest of the world.
Okay, to help us understand this further, so you mean that the biological setup of an African is different than the biological setup of a Caucasian in terms of human being?
Exactly.
That is very interesting. I'll be looking forward to see how you analyze that, because what Plato, if I read what Plato is doing, when Plato talks of inequality in society, he was trying to attach inequality in terms of job and any other choices, what you call the task that the people carry in a society. And we were saying that this inequality was to be natural, being produced out of education, and then produce other people as teachers, doctors, drivers, while other people become either the servants or the so-called slaves in the society and in the community. Something that then Socrates was looking beyond that. Socrates, in that book called Meno, is having a conversation with a slave boy. But then he does not look at the slave boy on his job as being a slave boy to make that boy or that person be a lower class person. But you engage that slave boy at a certain capacity, he can engage any member of a society, having full understanding that he, ever being a slave boy, has a capacity and an equal capacity to see the society and contribute to the society and equal lenses, irrespective of any job they take in a society.
True, that's true.
But you see, Plato's approach is different. Plato's approach thinks that wherever coming out of education and or Christianity, wherever being a bishop or a pastor or a reverend, you are totally different in terms of the ability to interpret the Bible, unlike the congregant to go to the church. So that assumes that by the virtue that either you are a bishop or a pastor, you do not have equal, or because you are a congregant, a follower in a church, and there's a bishop, a follower in the church may not have an equal ability to interpret the golden things of heaven compared to the pastor or bishop. Therefore, that brings a class that there is then the bishop or the pastor who must then intercede on behalf of the congregant. And that makes the congregant be just a follower and not having any ability to interpret the readings by him or herself. What do you say about that?
Yes, my lord, I agree on that. But what I'll only say is that you must understand there are also certain jobs in society that certain individuals cannot do, you see. We have specialized jobs, we know that. There are certain jobs where people cannot reach. Let me make just a typical example. In the army, you cannot be part of the secret service if you don't reach certain strict requirements, if you don't reach a certain height, if you don't have the certain mental capacity or the certain emotional intelligence that they require you to enter the service, you cannot enter. Same as the thing of the priesthood. In Africa, we still have the ancient priesthood of Africa who precedes all civilization. Those are the Apuna in Ethiopia. Those people, they precede all cultures because they don't eat, they don't sleep. You see, it's just supernatural phenomena going on there. And that is the essence of what I'm talking about, my lord. You can't have a white man who's an Apuna. You see, only those black people in Ethiopia are the Apunas of the world because of what I'm saying, the biological setup.
Okay, that's an interesting story that we'll be having a conversation on. Let me go to Sister Jerotich before I come to Sister Tapua. Sister Jerotich, kindly share your thinking on the paragraph and also be free to ask or contribute to whatever you want to contribute. To see your hand is up.
Okay, I think I just wanted to do a follow-up with my brother, Anunnaki General. I don't know whether maybe in the future, maybe not here, because not now because of time, but maybe in the future he could explain what he means when he was talking about, when he mentioned that Africans are not human and that whites are human. It would be good to have that discussion in details. And also, I think closely related to that is what he's saying about the priests in Ethiopia who are again superhuman. So I would love to understand more about what he means when it comes to those two statements, maybe in another forum or later on. And
Okay.
then also he said something about we are not the same because some people are, he gave the example of being maybe an FBI agent or something. You need some certain qualifications, but then again, for me, that's the beauty of I mean, not equal in that sense, not equal in the sense of there's diversity among us, which is necessary, both for biology and also for different energies and different purposes that we're all supposed to fulfill. But there's also classism that says one is better than the other. I think it should be good to differentiate the two. And then, okay, now when we come to the paragraph, well, I missed a lot of the history between Plato and Socrates and the egalitarianism and the reactionary of Plato, but I have a rough idea. Again, I think I would agree with Sister, I would echo the words of the thoughts of Sister Tapua, who basically said that Christianity has been turned into a less moral place, but a place where people don't care about what is right and wrong, but people just do exactly what they like and they bury it in the name of what I think is described here as the heavenly order, taking advantage of people, mistreating people, living higher than one should be. So it's the corruption of the church that really, I think what comes out for me here. Yeah, I think that's all
Yeah,
for this
thank you.
paragraph.
Thank you, sister. Of course, General Anunnaki studied the Dogon. Is it the Dogon what? So, generally, is it, you studied the Dogon? Dogon something, if I can remember it. But I know he'll be able to. Maybe we need to have a session, Brother General. We've been asking of this, the Dogon study that you're carrying us. We will be able to have a presentation of the Dogons. Because you have actually alluded to the Dogons that we came from heaven directly. Was that what you said? Sometimes back, General Anunnaki. Okay, I'll catch up on that. Or maybe another time. But let me get to Sister.
Brother, can you repeat? Sorry.
You are studying the Dogon what?
Oh, what about the Dogon?
That's where you get this information and this analysis that sister is saying.
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
the
Dogon people of Mali. Yes.
Dogon people of Mali. And we once said that we came from where? The Africans.
Yeah, we came from another planet called Nibiru.
And that's our realities, not myths or mysteries.
No, it's not a myth, it's a reality, my brother. It's not a myth, unfortunately.
So that is what we call the black consciousness, knowing who we are and where we came from. And that then either help us to liberate ourselves from this Western philosophy that says that whether we were created by God on signed on the soul or whatever, whether blown on Garden of Eden and the good stories in the Bible.
That story in the Bible is the story of how we created the white people. It's not how we created the black people. In the Bible,
we are the created not God.
Sorry?
That story of the creation in the Bible, when you say let's now create human being, that probably was now the black people creating white man.
Yes.
So it was not God thing. So these guys in the Bible got the story halfway. So they took the other part of us arriving and started from where we were creating the white man, assuming that now was the God creating a man.
Can you repeat, my brother? You spoke too fast. What are you saying?
Now I'm saying then the story in the Bible, either as it talks of the creation theory, then basically is then a halfway of how human being came to be. It starts from where Africans were now creating the white man.
Yes, my lord. Yes, my lord.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's a very interesting. Some few people are not used to this, but I think we need to have you a session on this, probably one of us already, so that you can also help liberate our minds on that.
Yes, my brother. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll organize for that as well. Sister Tapua, before we go to Sister Marlene.
Yes. Okay. I've always had the challenge that we are so Western in our mindsets that when we look at things, we tend to analyze them through the Western eye. Because when we are thinking of religion and we're thinking of Christianity in particular, which is referred to here, we're looking at Christianity as it is from the West. But religion plays a role in, particularly in an African setting and in the African mind, so that there is absolutely nothing wrong with religion. And in an African setting, as far as I understand African traditional religion, the fact that you are a Sangoma does not make you better than anyone else. In the African setting, we acknowledge that everyone has a role, everybody. We don't necessarily rank them, credit the other. We get everyone involved. In my culture, where I'm from, when there is an important anything going on, everybody is invited round the table, and people find the process so slow and arduous because it involves everyone. You present your issue, whatever it is, and it is literally passed on from one person to the other, and each one is acknowledging that they've understood and they've heard, and everybody has a say. So, with anyone playing an important role in society, especially the religious leaders and mothers, the concept that we have, for example, of gender this and women that and equality is so un-African, because in our society, the word society itself in an African context is everybody is involved. In my language, we say munu munu ngewamwewan. You are a person because of other people. So you cannot therefore say, because I'm a doctor, I'm more important than other people. So that's the struggle that we're in, that we're trying to understand ourselves through other people's eyes and through other people's language, and it becomes a challenge. So when we come back to the text, what's being said here is being spoken by someone who now understands Western culture, who's trying to understand the Western philosophy that discredits our philosophy. And we're trying to understand where these people are coming from. And I mean these people, the white people, so that we understand, for example, the misunderstanding that took place when they came here and they wanted to be with us. And as African as we are, if somebody else comes to your door, you can't chase them away. You can't say a human being cannot have a place to stay, because Earth is where we are, and everyone has a right to be on Earth. The idea of a title deed is so foreign that as Africans, we cannot comprehend that we are saying other human beings have no right to land. So where are they supposed to be? The trees are in someone's land, the water is in someone's land. So what are we saying is happening to other people? So that even when we're talking about the constitutions that we're coming up with as countries, they're reinforcing this idea of inequality, where we're saying one thing, but we existing, it's almost like schizophrenia, where we've got the European idea of how to be and the African idea of how to be. And what we're trying to do here is work our way so that we know the African idea is fair. We know the African idea of society is better for everyone's physical well-being, for everyone's mental well-being. Because the Western concept of society is just making people mad. It's just making people feel there's this competition of power. And I think that's where we're trying to get ourselves sorted. And I think we need to have General and a few other people like him come up with new ideas so that we understand who we are and where we're coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Tapua. I'll come to you, Sister Jeratuchi, later. Let me first of all finish the list here. We are sharing our thinking in regards to the first paragraph, where it says, Plato's reactionary philosophy received development at the hands of the Christian intellectuals. So when they needed a philosophy, buttress or buttressed their division between an heavenly order and an earthly order, it was to Plato's a lesser extent that they turned. So it shows we are discussing the Plato's reactionary philosophy. And I've illustrated to those who were not with us in the previous readings that Plato was reacting to Socrates' philosophy. And basically, we have been analyzing egalitarianism, which is equality of human beings in a society. Even Socrates embraced further. As from the origin of understanding that all human beings come from the same matter, which means we are all equal, and therefore in need of equal society, which is egalitarianism. Plato reacts to that equality by objecting that equality, by saying that we are not equal, for there are divisions of people in a society. There are classes that are being brought about. I wasn't present in the last class, but if I can be able to take you back a bit to connect to this, is that Plato sees a differentiation or division in a society where some are either workers on different level, while others are either servants in a society. And I think if I can read it on my back, it's to say, I would say that Plato did not believe, let me take it, if you can see where I'm scrolling, up here. It says that this paragraph, just for a reminder for those who are trying to catch up with the conversation in the lower paragraph, this paragraph here, this paragraph says that whereas Socrates had affirmed the original equal endowment of men, explained differences between men in terms of education. Plato was no believer in the fundamental equality of men. Underline the word fundamental equality of men. He held to the original inequality of men, which unrelentingly educational system will quickly reveal. He held that some men had a higher reason than others, and although education might up to a point conceal them, these differences were bound to reveal themselves after a certain stage of a thorough-going education. These differences in the level of intelligence, according to Plato, implied a natural division and a hierarchy of labor, each man being fitted by nature for functions appropriate to him, the less intelligence being, in fact, only qualified to undertake menial forms of labor. All political and social power was at the same time to be concentrated in the hands of the intellectual in trust. In this way, Plato admired and unconscionable totalitarianism of intellectuals. This is the Plato stand, and that is what we are coming down here to take as its reactionary philosophy. So we are reacting to this paragraph and how Christian intellectuals turned to Plato's reactionary philosophy and what was to its advantage. So I want to hear your thinking in regards to that paragraph. So let me get to Sister Marlene. Sister Marlene?
Hello, sorry, I joined recently, so I didn't hear what the conversation was, but I heard one of the sisters saying that we think in a very Eurocentric way, and I have to totally agree with her, because sometimes you're having discussion with people and they just don't seem to get it. They seem to think in the way of what they've been told through the media or through the radio or whatever, and they just don't want to change the narrative, because it's the narrative that we're fed on a daily basis. And we have to be re-educated. And that's all I can add. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sister. So, comrades, once again, just allow me to remind you that you are discussing the first paragraph highlighted. We'll go to the next paragraph below, but you're only discussing that first paragraph. So let me go to the next person on the list. And I will read the paragraph again. The paragraph says that Plato's reactionary philosophy received development at the hands of the Christian intellectuals. I've read this reactionary philosophy up there. For when they needed a philosophy that portrays their division between a heavenly order and an earthly order, it was to Plato and to the lesser extent Plotinus that they had. So what do you understand with that? What's your thinking in regards to that text? How can you relate to the current status today? Is it the same thing going on today? And how do you react to this? How do you see the paragraph? What's your thinking in regards to that paragraph? That's what we are seeking you to share with us. Sister Myra, I know you've said you're not in a position to share your thinking. Hope you if you're able.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I think in Plato's we're still talking about how Western thinking or Indo-European thinking came to be. And for me, what came to mind was kind of like the history of religion, of European religion, which is Christianity. They had copied it from the Greeks, who copied it from Kemet. But I think that even the Greeks, they didn't really understand the spiritual concept of Kemetic spirituality. They didn't understand.
Sister Myra? Continue, maybe we've lost you. Okay. Let's go to Brother Blum. I know today we've joined a bit earlier. Are you able to share something based on this conversation in the first paragraph? We'll give you some time a bit. Elder Glory? Okay.
Yes,
Let's go to-
I am just reading the first few paragraphs, and I've not encountered this before, that there was so much need of the early Christians to engage in Plato's philosophy. I'm really just trying to get a grip of that. I'll continue to read. The way you screen shared, it would prevent me reading the third paragraph. So I don't know if you could do something about that. But for the time being, it's just an interesting eye opener. I don't know if it's ever been discussed before about the engagement of the Christian philosophy and relying on Plato for an explanation. Plato, I beg your pardon. It's my first encounter with it. Let me read that. Thank you for scaling that up. I'll try and come back. Thank you.
Yeah, if I take you through this analysis a bit, is that we have been encountering two parts of ideologists. There are people who are idealists and those who are materialists. The idealists are those who believe in spirituality and ideas, of course, as you know. And then they brought what we call hierarchy. So hierarchy of being, either the God, the angels, then those are the creatures or the divine interveners of God on earth. So they acted, the preachers or the priesthood class acted as the class that was above the ordinary citizens, in the aristocratic society, in the Greek setup. And it's not only in that. Even today, that's what they assume to. They assume roles in the country today, whereby we find some people rely on the people of church, or people, they call them men of God or men of God, to tell them what's going on. And that anything they do or intervene or bless was to be assumed to be powerful. So they assume some level of power. This power gave them power even to run countries or societies. And then that power was to be checked, because it was to be exploited by them. Because if they say that they get their power from God, and anything they do, you'll say that they do it because of God. So how can you challenge that? And they're not God. So they created that hierarchy of divine being, which made them be above the people. Now, Plato, as I've read previously, Plato is also supporting this ideology that people are not equal, and that people should be up and people should be down in a society. And that's why they're saying, us stand here, that when Christian intellectuals turn to that ideology of philosophy of Plato of inequality between human beings or between men, then when they turn to this philosophy, they turn to it when they needed to break the division, when they needed to show themselves as different in society. For example, the pastors or the bishops or the preachers, they live in the same community like us as your neighbor. They're not different. When you have the next door neighbor is a pastor and you're here, when you interact in normal circumstances, they don't assume this power of them being superior. But when they want either to enforce something for their own benefit or imply something that they want to command you on, they assume the priesthood nature. So they become the pastors. Now they speak to you and they tell you what you're supposed to do. Irrespective that when you go home, sometimes you relate as neighbors. So that tells you that they were only taking this Plato's philosophy just for some advantage when they needed it. And when they're creating divisions in society, as they say, between heavenly order and earthly order, why do they want to assume that position? They wanted to assume that position, maybe to pass something or endorse something or overcome something in a society. For example, why should your neighbor come now and see I'm preaching to you as a man of God? Well, in the normal society, is your neighbor whom you go to the same shop together with. He only says the man of God when you want to pass something. When you want either to give some information to subdue you or subject you, or you want to take over control of you as a person. And when you assume the priesthood or the pastorhood role, then you appear to be lesser to him. Therefore, you're only waiting for him as almost an upper being that then connects you to what God says, or as a messenger of God, basically putting a barrier between you and either the God or the ancestors. So they have to intervene before you. And this is what he's saying here, that they wanted to turn to Plato, which means they never used to turn to Plato alone, because Plato's bring the hierarchy. But in some circumstances, these Christians were just normal people, but they turned to that philosophy in that extent, as we have seen it in previous chapters and previous readings we had. Hope that helps a bit. But that is now, what we need to check a bit is now, what is the implication of that standpoint? What is the implication of that Christian intellectual taking that position in the current setup up to date in the society or in African context? And that goes against our fundamental understanding of human being equal, coming from the same matter. That there is no human being, even if it should be on the eyes of the Creator, that is less accessible to Creator than other. That's why even the doctrine of the Bible says we are all created in the image of God. Pastor was not created in more image of God than you. You are all created in that image of the Creator. So whether it's God or any Creator is, you are all created equal in that image. But these people then seem to be more equal at a time when they put on their clothes. And when they do that, they do it for a purpose. Sister Tapua.
Yes. I'm looking at the word buttress there in, I think it's the second sentence, for when they needed a philosophy to buttress. To buttress is to support something that is already existing. And when we look at the lessons that we've had so far in terms of philosophical development in Europe, remember we talked about the religious order and how power was vested in their hands. And it's only natural that when something threatens your position, you try to do something to maintain your position. So here we've got the religious group, the priests who were powerful and were controlling the politicians, realizing that they're losing power. And as they are losing power, they need something to buttress, to support their position. And Plato's change in position, his reactionary position, gives them an opportunity to find something that is current to them, to their situation, and something that will help them continue in a position of advantage. I've always I see a parallel between what happened during the slave trade, or when there is, a threat to power for people who have an advantage. Because when the slaves started rebelling and getting into maroon societies, and Haiti happened, and all the other goings on of the Black people fighting the system, the people who had sustained and maintained it suddenly said, we're fighting against slavery. We want to liberate the slaves. So that took power back into their court, as it were. And then they started preaching their own story, singing their own song, saying, this is us stopping the slave trade. This is us being saintly. And then we are hoodwinked into believing that things have changed, but we still find ourselves in the plantation. The plantation has just changed form, but it's still a plantation. It's changed location, but it's still a plantation. So this is where we are learning that power is not easy to give up. People will do anything to get power, which is why, for example, as Africans and as post-colonial Africa, we're in the position that we're in. The colonialists will not give up their power. They will dance with us a tune that is akin to what's happening in South Africa today, where you have a situation where they cannot give up power. And unless we are aware of it, and unless we know and we can see their machinations, we will continue this dance, because it's not just going to happen. It's not going to be put on a platter for us to go on with our lives, because that's not the nature of what they believe. So this is what I think is coming out in this paragraph, that power will not easily be relinquished, and we need to be aware of it. And they will come up with all sorts: climate change, population control, all sorts of high-sounding, high-flying ideas just to keep power. I'll stop here for now.
Thank you, Sister Tapua. Welcome, Brother Kwame. Brother Kwame? Okay. Brother, are you able to share your thinking with us? Brother Koko, let me know if you're in a position to share your thinking with us. If you're not able, I'll go to Brother Kama Achunde.
I would rather listen. You know, my upbringing, I'm not good at analyzing such type of thinking.
Don't be afraid, brother. We're all trying to.
I'm learning.
We're all trying to learn. Not all of us are used to it, but doing it repeatedly make it appear like easier to us, but we are also struggling to learn. We are not masters in this.
Let me listen for today.
Okay, thank you. Brother Koko? Oh, Brother Koko, your microphone is now on. So please step in anytime after Brother Koko shares thinking. We're sharing thinking in the latter paragraph, the first paragraph and second paragraph. But we've concentrated in the first paragraph for the first time. So once Brother Koko is done, we can now get deep into the second paragraph, even though other people have been sharing their thinking in regards to the second paragraph. Yes, Brother Koko?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. I just love what Sister Tapua presented. But let me put it in a different way, in that the Western world is built on hierarchy. So I'll repeat again, the Western world is on hierarchy. And that hierarchy was what was used to disrupt our egalitarianism. So you remember we talked about egalitarianism before. And in another paragraph, we also taught that the world is constantly in conflict. So there is a constant conflict going on. So the world is never at peace because there are always forces at the conflict. So that's why we can talk about dialectics, because there is always one side wishing to take over. And in this case, we have to remember that there was that aristocracy, it was there before, and was being used or was using the priesthood at the time, which was looking above to sort of run the law on us as humans, or the Greeks of that time had to be subjugated by that aristocracy. Then lots of things happened. You know about the mercantiles who took the materials, especially the water, mercantile trade, and turned things around. And then we had Socrates, who learned in Egypt, and he understood egalitarianism in a way, to an extent, and was trying to implement that, or was trying to teach that to his disciples. But unfortunately, some of these disciples did not believe that, or because of how they saw the system treat Socrates, they decided to rebel against the system, or to do a coup d'etat on the system. That's why Plato came in with his idea of making sure that there was always an aristocracy, and this aristocracy was based on education. And this is where the priests or the Christians took that into account and used that to their advantage, as Sister Tapua has brilliantly put it, to make sure that they hold the power. There will always be someone who holds the power. In our structure as Africans, our democracy is that everyone has a voice, everyone has a say in how decisions are made. Morena ke morena ka batho. When we say morena ke morena ka batho, we mean you can only be a leader because of the people who put you up there. And we have a generally flat structure. But as I said, the Western one is hierarchical. There is a lord who owns all the lands, and everyone work on his lands as serfdoms. And then from serfdoms, then we went into slavery, where they own all the slaves. Same. And then capitalism, the boss is there. The boss works, the boss is the one with capital, and labor doesn't have anything. And that is the premise, or that is the basis of Plato's foundation, Plato's theory of aristocracy by education. And I'm really saddened that Sister Myra struggled with connection, because she was talking about something which was from Yuruku by Dr. Marimba Ani, which also showed something else about power. That power from the European context is always power over something. Is always power over something. Whereas from an African perspective, power is power to relate. It's that power which we get from nature, we get from the people around us, we get it from the animals we have, the animals we live with, we get it from relating with everyone else.
It's more or less the same thing. And again, in manufacturing consent, I think Noam Chomsky also addresses this, because democracy has been used by that. It's being hijacked by a few who take over control over everyone else. And we are continuing to do that every 4 or 5 years to give them that power to continue to rule over us. And you know, Brother Pickman, you tried to run for presidency in Kenya. You know how that aristocracy is difficult to break through. It's going to be very difficult unless we revolt against that system entirely. Thank you.
Thank you. Brother Kwame, please come in and take over the chairship of the class. Only Sister Ida hasn't been able to share thinking because she joined now. If she'll be in a position to speak, she can. But some of us have decided to contribute to the 2 paragraphs, but we were also concentrating the first paragraph. But you can get the conversation moving forward. Brother Kwame?
Yeah, thank you. Let me pick up from our learned Brother Coco. Brother Coco, is it correct to say that labor don't own anything, or that African labor does not own anything? Is that in terms of the African context? I'm not talking about labor in England or in America, but labor in Africa generally. Is it correct to say they don't own anything?
You and me are economists. You know what that means. We as
no, I don't. I'm asking you.
Yeah,
I don't know.
as laborers, we always get the remnants, the residuals, or whatever else remains, because that's how the system now works. It's whoever puts in the capital in there who gets out a lot, and that is the basis of the monetarist control of the world. The fiat currency is based on that. It's based on who has more capital, not who has
sorry,
more labor.
Brother Coco, can I come in? What I'm asking you is, in your submission, you said that labor doesn't own anything, and I'm asking that is that within the African context, is that correct, or can it be modified? That's the question I'm asking. Thank you.
Let me answer that based on our experience in Lesotho. During the apartheid years, Basotho miners, Zambian miners, and Malawi miners, they were the ones who were working in the mines in South Africa. We built that country as you see it today. And the Mozambicans mostly, let me say that, and Swaziland. I mean, all the countries. So what they did was they created, well, Lesotho became a conducive or a convenient labor supply for them. But what did our people get? I don't think we got anything out of the mines of South Africa. We had lots and lots of labor. We still do provide some
Brother
to an
Coco,
extent.
sorry to interrupt.
Can I come in?
Sorry, hold on, stop. Brother Coco, we are talking about ownership. So focus on the question of ownership. That's where I'm driving at. Not whether or not somebody lied to us about what we own and gave us pittance. That's not the point I am raising. I'm asking you, when you say that labor does not own anything, I'm asking you, is that correct within the African context? Does that make sense? Not whether or not not whether or not imperialism came in, stole what belonged to us, got us to work, and then paid us a pittance. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, let me respond in saying this. There is an equal return for both, regardless of from which direction you look at it. Whenever there's capital and then there's labor involved, labor always come out the West, always the West. That's why the gap between the poor and the rich is constantly growing. It's continuously growing because of that. So in short, even what we own, we are going to lose out in the end because they're going to buy all of it. And we are providing mostly labor, not capital.
Can I come in, please?
Yeah, but Brakoko, what about the land? Who owns the land? In
Can I
which
come in?
can you hold on, Sister Tapua, please? Brother Coco, who owns the land that is being mined?
The land is meant to be owned by the people.
So
It's
no,
meant
what
to
I'm
be owned
asking
by
is
the people.
within the Lesotho context that you mentioned, who owns the land of Lesotho?
It's the government on behalf of the people of Basotho. That's what it's
So
meant
then
to
it's
be.
not correct to say that labor doesn't own anything. That's the point I'm driving at. That even within Marxism, it's accepted that that labor owns labor power. And by labor power, we mean the skills, knowledge, experience that is within the human being. So as a working human being, you own that labor power. And you can refuse to work by withdrawing your labor. But as you said, we know that within the context of capitalism, the employers in bed with the state ensures that you can't survive if you withdraw your labor. Yeah, but be that as it may, you still own your labor power. And within the African context, like you were saying, the land.
Paper, yeah.
Sorry.
On paper, you own it, but
no, it's
in
not.
in
It's not just.
practical
No,
terms,
it's not just
that
on
doesn't
paper.
work.
It's not just. Yes, Tapua, it's not just on paper. Tapua, you can come in now. Thank you.
Right. The point I wanted to make was we're analyzing this from the conditions that have been put in front of us by the colonialists. When we're looking at the African context, we need to be very clear about which Africa we're talking about. There's the current Africa, the past Africa, the past Africa, and beyond. And when we're talking about ownership of the land, the colonialists were able to come in, sign papers, and settle because the land did not belong to anyone, one person. It belonged to everybody. Because we cannot exist as people on earth without the earth and everything that's on it.
Hello?
Hello?
Brother Kwame, you can hear
Yeah,
me?
go on. Yeah, go on, Sister Tapua.
Okay. We cannot exist on earth without the earth. And the problem is there is a group of people who want to own the land and exclude others. And that's where inequality starts. Because for anything to work, for anything, there's got to be some kind of dialectics. There's got to be people who are gifted with their hands. There's got to be people who are gifted with their minds. There's got for society to work. And it is this challenge of saying this person is better than the other, this gender is better than the other, this hierarchy should be what we go by. That is kind of wrong-footed Africans, because it's so un-African, and we did not realize what we were walking into when we walked into this. And we were taken by surprise that even if we own the land, we were the first on the lands, and we were inhabiting the lands, and we were mining, we didn't think anyone would just come and turf us off. I remember Robengula sent, is it 3 Indunas to the Queen to explain to the Queen that in our country, no one owns the land, and these people who have signed these papers did not make it clear what they were doing, because when he had signed the concession, someone had to, Rudd explained to him what he had done, and he kind of was shocked by that. And the Queen gave a rude remark, something to the fact that you don't give strangers your whole kraal of cattle or something like that. It's your fault. So it's that clash of ideas that we need to be careful of, because I'm thinking we progressively getting to look at things from the Western point of view. Because when you say, for example, we're both economists, my antennas just go up and go, oh, because as people who are trained by the West, we're now looking at our own situation using those eyes. I think we need to kind of step back and say, what is it that we've been taught? And we need to move away from that, to be conscious that, yes, this is the explanation that we've been given for this situation, but is this what we want to achieve? Thank you.
Yeah, but Sister Tapua, I mean, Brother Kuku has a right to say what he likes. You can also say what you like. Yeah.
And can I come in?
Sister, yeah, Brother Kuku, can you just hold on? Let Sister Ida come in. She's had a hand up as well. Yeah.
My comment is about who owns the land, because I'm not sure that the land is communally owned anymore. Maybe in some places, but more often than not, those at the top of the community who own it will also sell it off. And therefore, this bit about who owns the land, I think what Sister Tapua said about there's now, there's before, and then there's pre-before. I think that we have to recognize that even though there may be people, chiefs and so on, or a group at the top, they're not necessarily as wise as those who are crooks. And quite often land does get lost. It doesn't necessarily always belong to the people at the end of the day, is what I think I'll say. So I'm a bit worried about, we think that there's this perfect Africa where the land is owned by the people. I don't think it always is anymore. So
yeah,
thank you.
But let's also not generalize, please. Yeah.
Not generalize, but because it happens so often, there's no other way you can do but generalize.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that let's also be mindful that we don't generalize. Just because you give someone a lease for 100 years to mine, doesn't mean they own it. Yeah. A lease is not ownership. Brother Coco, you want to come in before I continue? Yes. Can Coco come in? Because he wanted to respond. And then you can come in, Brother Pigeon. Coco.
Yes, I just wanted to make it clear to Sister Tapua that when I said we are both economists, we have seen what we have been given, Sister Tapua, that is poison and is meant to strengthen the capitalist, imperialist system of the West. And we consciously have made a decision that we can only use it for the benefit of Africa. We can't continue saying we are economists and promoting capitalism. We are not. So that's number one. Number two, Sister Ida, with regards to communal way of owning things, the government still owns. The government still gives leases out. It gives lots of stuff on behalf of the people. It's meant to work like that. Congo, when it gives licenses to prospectors, gives them to the Chinese, gives them to the Europeans, is doing that as a Congolese government, not as private enterprises who are doing that. That's where we are coming from. That the government owns the land on behalf of the people.
And Coco, can I also add that even if you own land, even if you own it privately, and it turns out that
yes,
oil or diamonds or gold are discovered on that land.
Yes.
According to some laws in some countries, Ghana, I know for sure, that land ceases to be yours. It then belongs to all the people. Yeah. So let's be mindful how we generalize. Also, let's also remember, if you take Ghana, I don't know about other countries, but if you take Ghana, for instance, the whole of Ashanti, that whole land is owned by the Ashanti stool. There is no private ownership. So let's keep all this in mind when we are talking. Yes, in Kenya, there's something happening in Kenya, and Brother Pigeon can talk more about that. When the land were given back to the people, and then the elite stole them. So there is that. But remember that with Ghana, a society emerged led by lawyers called the Aborigines Rights Protection Society, who challenged what the British were doing in Kenya, South Africa, and so on. And they came to England here, to the House of Commons, and argued their case. And the Parliament accepted their argument. And so they did not proceed with this idea that if a land is not being used, it belongs to the British Crown. I'm only giving that history so that we remind ourselves about these things. Anyway, the time is 8:34. Brother Pigeon, you wanted to come in. Sorry, before Brother Coco, have you finished?
No. It's clear. I think we
okay.
have exhausted. Thank you.
And I think for those of us here, the Saturday classes are slightly different. But for those of us here in this class, let's remember that a lot of us here are very, shall I say the word, advanced in terms of our thinking. We are not. We've been at this game now in terms of philosophy and ideology for a long time. So when we say certain things, brothers and sisters must interpret it within the context that the one you are hearing from knows what he's talking, or he's talking about. When we go to the Saturday class, we don't know. Normally we get visitors, so you don't know where they are coming from. So when they are saying something, you're not sure what they are really saying. So we can challenge them. But here, let's proceed on the basis that all of us here, and we've been at this for a while now, almost a year, isn't it? I mean, some of us for years and years, but those of us here have been on this for about a year now. And I think we know one another, and we know one another's thinking. So I'm only saying that in the sense that when Coco says, for instance, that we're economists, he's not implying that we are looking at Africa through the lens of Western economics. I don't think that is not what he meant. And I think what I am encouraging us to also recognize is that it's okay to ask questions. So, Brother Pigeon, what did you mean by this? Sister Tapua, what did you mean when you said this? It's okay. Let's ask each other questions. Let's not assume that we think we know what somebody's thinking. Because we are sharing thinking, let's not assume people's thinking. Let's ask them direct questions. So, Brother Coco, when you say that we are both economists, what do you mean? Can you explain? And then that will give us opportunity to share our thinking, because that's part of sharing our thinking. Remember, we're all sharing our thinking. Yeah, nobody here is perfect. Nobody here knows it all. Everybody here is equal. We are all equal here, and everybody's thinking is important. Everybody's thinking is equal. Yeah. Just because your thinking might be wrong doesn't mean you don't have the right to think what you are thinking. So let's be kind of collegiate, supportive, support one another, and build one another up. Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say. But Brother Pigeon.
Yes, thank you, Brother Kwame. I want to, of course, also share my thinking in regards to also the text. But one is, first of all, to start by saying that what is capital? Because the Western ideology of philosophy value capital to be more of monetary, currency and paper thing. But I think even labor...
Can I answer that question? You asked the question. What is capital?
Yes.
Capital basically is money, if you like.
Now, that is what is wrong, because...
So capital, to be more precise, is finance. We mean finance capital. That is the money you need to finance economic activity. So if you want to set up a business or do an investment, that money that you need to do that is called capital. So for instance, that money, you may use it to buy land, you may use it to buy some machines, you can use it to open a bank account, you might use it to buy stock, you might use it to employ labor, you might use it, so you might use it to buy to set up shops or what. So that finance capital is basically what we mean by capital. It's not just money as in liquid capital. It's not like it's not capital in the sense of liquid cash. So when we say capital, we mean land, we mean
No.
machine,
No.
we mean factories, we mean equipment, you know, and so on and so forth.
Okay, that's where I wanted to come to. Because then the Western philosophy separates capital and assets. Where
Sorry?
assets
Sorry,
is what you're
sorry, what's the
assets.
question?
Now, the Western thinking or the so-called economics you exposed to, which is from the education system, then brings the difference between what is a capital and an asset. Well, in the African context, whatever they call asset is capital to us. The financial and monetary system thing was not within us, and therefore what they call labor, land, and the rest is our capital. It's what we call our social capital. So when you have the classification, for example, when somebody had cows in the community, that was his capital. At the same time, Western will call it assets. Labor that is being presumed here as not capital is our social capital in a society, because if you have your labor, your skills, you can produce what you want. But to them, then capital became more of financial and those economics and money figure things as per se. But that is where the difference comes between us as Africans with them, because the financial monetary thing was not with us. With us, everything, the land, the cows, the people, were the capital of the society and the assets of the society.
Yeah, but Brother Pigeon, I mean, we hear you, but I don't think that is a correct way to put it, in the sense that the fact that at some point in our development we did not have money, which is what you are saying, therefore the cows you own is your capital. Fine. But the moment money comes in, the moment the economy becomes a monetary economy, it changes. Remember that under slavery, yeah, the human beings were like your cows. Yeah. So when slaveholders were accounting for their assets, use your word assets, the slaves they owned, they were the assets. Yeah. And at the same time, if you could then sell those assets for money, you could then get capital. But like you are saying, that is because in a monetary economy, you can sell your assets for money. Now, capital and assets are in accounting. If you go to accounting, in financial accounting, there is the asset side of a business and there is a capital side of a business. So it's not strictly correct to say that in the West, they see what they see as capital is what we see as assets. Now, am I making sense?
But financial accounting is still the Western financial accounting.
Yes, but they did not invent it. I mean, the Phoenicians were buying and selling long before our ancestors were buying and selling long before our children started buying and selling.
So can you categorize assets and capital using our ancestors selling before, where there was no money? Could you differentiate them in terms of accounting? Will we have a page of capital and asset using our traditional setup and then have a clear separation?
Good question. That's why I'm saying that where the economy is not a monetary economy, if you have an asset and you want another asset, you exchange your asset for the other asset through what was called barter trading. But then when money comes in, you mediate the exchange of those assets through money. But capital strictly is not money. Because you see, in accounting, when you do your accounts, in the accounting, you say that this is the capital of the business. That capital is represented by the assets. So the assets of the business are represented in the accounts by the capital. And the capital could be anything between, it could be shareholders who bought shares, it could be debenture holders, it could be the people who have invested, it could also sometimes be debt in terms of monies borrowed, it could be overdrafts in the bank, and so on and so forth. But you are right, all that comes up when you have monetary economy, and then you begin to have sophisticated financial instruments. To the extent that I can say, Brother Pigeon, I trust you, so give me a paper that says that if I give you, I don't know, 20 cows, you will pay me back with 50 cows. Yeah, I trust you. Just write a paper for me, and I will accept that. Now, when you get into that area, then you are talking about sophisticated financial instruments, and then you have things like insurance and so on and so forth. Let me pause there.
Okay, as I proceed to my contribution to this, that is the Western philosophy that gives birth to capitalism, which is their Western system and not our system. As it is, our system did not value so-called capital that makes their capitalism, while our capital was our social being, our people and our resources. And what I wanted to ask here, when we read this text talks about the Christian or the theocratic power that they wielded in a society, we say social political power. My question that has been my observation, I haven't seen, and maybe it happened, where most of these Christian societies or pastors or whatever had a big share of land. What they see us in the community, or the so-called religious practitioners in the community, or the spiritualists, were they having a big chunk of land? Unlike now, where we are having the people are in the political power today, like the political class, have a big share of land than the community. Because I'm seeing like either the religious things, as they were coming in, the Christian intellectuals, were either focusing on the heavenly wealth, that they never thought of too much of taking the land and controlling the land, like a big land belonging to the pastor of a church or something like that. But they know, yes, their building and structures are in a certain portion of land, but not that they actually own bigger lands and tracts of lands, either in the traditional setup or even in the Christian setup. I didn't see where the priesthood or the theocratic class took over land in a big sum of assets they wanted, or in terms of the material they wanted to possess. But maybe it's because of their idealist mentality that there was an heaven outside earth, and therefore they wanted us to invest outside there in heaven. But also we must be conscious that those missionaries who came in the same narrative are the same people who own up some companies that they registered and took over our land in control. So that's a clear observation I'm trying to make here, that as they were holding the social political power, there's a question I'm asking myself in our setup. Are we aware of either the Christians or the religious community that were, or pastors or whatever, who had a big land that they took from the community?
Okay. Thank you for sharing your thinking. Has everyone shared their thinking, Brother Pigeon, before I came in?
Yes, Sister Ida.
But she shared her thinking, unless she wants to share more.
No, there's somebody who has joined us, Sir WHK.
That name sounds familiar. I think
from Zambia. What does Zambia or Zimbabwe? I know.
Yes, I think it's a brother. Is this brother? Sister?
Yeah.
Brother, can you share your thinking on the screen? Thank you. We can see your face now. Yeah, share your thinking. we can see your nice face. You need to unmute yourself, please. Thank you. Yeah, unmute yourself. That's
it. I think I did. Man, I just joined now. Can you pass for now?
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's fine. So I think, Brother Pigeon, in that case, you've heard from everyone. I thought I saw Sister Myra earlier. Is she still here? Sister Myra, have you already contributed? I'm sure you may have.
Technology.
What about Gerald?
They are trying to sabotage her.
Have you shared? Sister Mara, have you shared already?
Brother
I'm sure you have
Koko,
already.
find out.
Mhm.
I'm having connection problems, so I'm just listening.
Oh, right. Okay.
I keep falling in and out.
Yeah, okay. In that case, we've heard from everyone. The time is 12 minutes to 9. So I think we can begin to round up. Sister Marlene has also spoken, I believe. So what is this paragraph telling us? I mean, in short, what is this paragraph telling us? So this Plato is a rascal, isn't he? Isn't Plato, Sister Tapua, isn't Plato a rascal?
I wouldn't want to say so because no.
I
No, I
am
wouldn't
being
say.
provocative deliberately. Go on.
I know. Right. I acknowledge that what Pluto was talking about was he observed in any wanting to quantify and say this gift is better than that one, forgetting that society exists as a whole. Not one individual can survive without the others, and therefore hierarchy must go. So he found himself drifting into the hands of the aristocracy, particularly the Christians, and that's where everything goes wrong for him.
Yeah, but I don't think I think the Christians, Tapua, Plotinus and the others, it's they who use Plato's philosophy for their own ends. But as you know, Plato himself died long before Christianity was born. But okay, according to the reading that we are reading, it's saying that Plato. I'm just trying to find it here in my book here. So I'm just trying to find exactly where we are in my book, because I know I know it's highlighted on the screen.
If you're using the book with the red cover, we're in page 42. Because there's a book with the green cover and the one with the red cover.
Yeah.
So the red cover is page 42.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I can highlight very fast whatever I to.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I was just trying to find it in my book here so that I anyway, in terms of what we are seeing on the screen, so Nkrumah is recapping, isn't he? He's recapping where he came from. He's thinking as to how his thinking is evolving. So if you look at the second paragraph, he's saying that I started this sketch of Western philosophical thought from a time in the history of East Greek founders, when an aristocratic class, assisted by a priestly oligarchy, held the sum total of social political power. At the time when I came in, Brother Koko was speaking about this and discussed Socrates and so on. So we saw how the earliest philosophers rebelled against that social order, and so on and so forth, and so on and so on. So what is Nkrumah telling us? What is Nkrumah, Brother Pigeon? What do you think Nkrumah is saying? He's saying to us.
Basically, what I can say, of course, I've learned some pattern in Nkrumah's approach in how he structures his thinking. Nkrumah has been trying to show both sides of the divide. He hasn't been that unfair to both sides, which means both sides means either both the idealism and the materialist side, or the dialectical thing. So Nkrumah always exposes both sides of the dialectics. Then from there, he draws a conclusion. And that is what I've seen right from even when we read chapter 1 on the origin, the philosophy in retrospect, when he looked at other, even when Nkrumah brings these philosophers, he's always been fair enough to expose both sides so that when he deduces actually his resolutions, he can easily pinpoint to weaknesses that are seen in difference or opinion that find very, very interesting way of analyzing situation. Because most of us, in normal opinions of books, writing, somebody could only give his part of thinking, you see? He put only what you think is right, and you put it all down for somebody to be convinced. But when you do, like in this book, it's a cross-examination where you expose both sides of the forces, which means you acknowledge both the dialectics and give them fair analysis based on their structure. Then now you enable readers like ourselves to be able to understand both sides.
So when Nkrumah is telling us that, look, there was a theological explanation of natural phenomena, okay? And that natural phenomenon, they had a religious explanation for it. To put it simply, God created the world. And if you're a human being, God created you, and the priests are those who mediate between God and you. So if you have a farm and you want good crops, you come to the priests with some of the food, you give it to them, they pray to God, and then God then brings rain, and then you have a good harvest because the rains came. If the rains haven't come, it's because you've done something wrong. The priests can mediate God to God on your behalf, and so on and so forth. So this is the theological explanation of natural phenomena, in the sense that if there is no rain, it's nothing to do with the gods. It's nothing to do with God. If there is no rain, there is a natural explanation for why there is no rain. If there is rain, there is a natural explanation. You understand? There's a natural explanation. But at the time, they went for theological explanations. Okay? And then, as things evolved, that was challenged. And so now, what we have, and as the paragraph is saying, then the challenge came where they went to the root of the matter by introducing a different kind of explanation for social and natural phenomena. So, for instance, if there is sunlight, it's not because of the love of God that is shining on us. That is not what sunlight is. Although those who have a theological explanation for everything will say that the sun is a symbol of God's love for you. God cares for you. So the sun, is God's light for you, is the light of the world. The sun is shining because it's a gas. You understand? And our physicist is not here. He will explain to us by nuclear fission, that is how energy is created, and that is how sunlight comes to us. It has nothing to do with God or gods. And that everything around us in our universe has a natural explanation. It doesn't mean that we know everything or that we can explain everything. No, we can't. But just because we can't doesn't mean that you can't invoke spurious explanations. So keep an eye on the time. So what Nkrumah is telling us, isn't it? I'm asking you, isn't Nkrumah telling you to challenge explanations that you are hearing around you? Africa is this because of this. Africa is where it is because of that. Africa is poor because that. Africans are lazy. Africans are this. They said to us the slaves were very lazy. Isn't that what they said? They said slaves were the laziest people on earth. That's what they said. Now think about it. What slave in his right mind will work very hard? Think about it. If you are a slave and you are in your right mind, will you work very hard for your master? You must be stupid to work very hard for your enslaver, so that he or she makes a lot of money, and then you are given pittance. So the idea that they were lazy was complete nonsense. But anyway, so Nkrumah is telling us, let's question things. let's question things. Let's understand that this is how the thing evolved. It evolved through Africans thinking, through people thinking, and looking at society. And society is not, this is not what we want. We need a new kind of society. And if that is the case, we need some new thinking. And you can see that they went to the root of the matter by introducing a different kind of explanation. So Nkrumah is telling us, let us come up with a different kind of explanation for the social and natural phenomena that is called Africa. I'll pause there. Thank you. Brother Pigeon, announcement so we can end.
Yeah, thank you all. Those are very good. Very called reduction. Today I've been listening to so many legal words in the court as they try to impeach a deputy president. Anyway, thank you for your attendance to our class today. And as you can see, yes, we engage deep. As Brother Tama said, we find it very hard sometimes to share his thinking, but all of us are learning, and we've been able to share fluently sometimes just because we've tried to practice. So I encourage everybody who join our class, try the little you can to share what you have, your thinking, and together over a period of time, we will build our thinking as a team. So yes, these recordings will be available next week as well. The recordings for last week have already been available on our YouTube channel. And this Saturday, we are still looking for a session. Of course, there are a number of speakers who might speak on something, but generally be assured that every Saturday we have a conversation on the unification of Africa. In case we get anybody who come and suggest speaker, we'll only be adding to be part of that conversation, either sharing some element of that unification concept. So we still welcome all of you to our Saturday unification conversation, which will be taking place this Saturday from 7 p.m. London time or 6 p.m. GMT. And then, yes, next Thursday, we'll continue from here where we've left it. We are doing a lot, and we encourage more people to come up so that we can join and form a bigger team as we progress with our ideas. We want to do more of podcasts. We want to do of education. We want to set up this class in more of physical spaces in different parts of the country. So join and be part of us so that you can move with the same thing and start teaching the community the same knowledge. So we welcome you to this conversation, and we ask you to continue joining us and spare your time, because it's really worth it. We have to liberate our men, and we have to be conscious, because it's our men that will be the tool we have to use in this struggle. So thank you very much for your attendance today. Back to you, Brother Kwame.
Yes, and just to tell all of us here, please, all of us here have the right to prepare something and present on a Saturday on the unification of Africa. It doesn't have to be somebody invited from outside. So for instance, Sister Ida could put something together and share with us. So can Sister Myra. So can Sir WA8. So can Brother Coco. And so on, Brother General. You might want to bring something to us on a Saturday on the US and how that will affect us, because you have a lot of knowledge. General Raspala, I'm referring to you. You want to bring something on a Saturday, because you believe that Trump will win and you make very good arguments. So let's hear it on a Saturday. So Brother Pigeon, I'm adding to what you said, that we shouldn't wait for somebody from outside. All of us here can prepare and present on a Saturday. I mean, I am myself putting something together, which I will present when I'm ready. That's it. Thank you.